But maybe we'll check again at 6 PM if we could rise to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion to enter executive. Oh,
If there's a number 3, go to the order. If there's just a motion to table until 6 PM. Motion table by member McLaughlin, seconded by member Hayes. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Go to the order is tabled. We have number 4, negotiations and legal matters, executive session, 5:15 PM. Executive session of the Medford School Committee pursuant to general laws, chapter 30A, section 21A, to conduct a strategy session on the basis that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining positions of the Medford School Committee. Specifically, the Medford School Committee will be discussing ongoing collective bargaining negotiations with multiple bargaining units. The Medford School Committee will convene in public session immediately following the conclusion of the executive session, expected to be approximately 6 PM. Motion to revert to executive session.
Motion to revert to executive session.
By member McLaughlin, seconded by
Second.
member Graham. All those in roll call.
Member Graham,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member Kretz,
Yes.
member McLaughlin,
Yes.
member Stone absent, member Rousseau, yes, Mayor Longo Kern.
Yes, 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent. We're going to head to executive session. Thank you, everybody. Number 5, consent agenda, bills and payrolls, regular school committee meeting minutes from November 7th, 2022. Is there a motion on the floor? By Member McLaughlin, seconded by
Second.
Member Kretz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes.
Make a motion to take the good of the order off the table.
Motion to take number 3 off the table, good of the order,
Second.
by Member McLaughlin, seconded by Member Graham. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. And Member McLaughlin?
Thank you. For the good of the order, which is basically us assessing how we're doing as collaboratively as a school committee. And we review monthly what we need to do. I know in the past we talked about and we approved a motion for us to meet to set school committee goals. And I know that we talked about that potentially happening as a committee of the whole. So I was wondering if we could consider this as a committee of the whole before one of our monthly meetings next month. And in which case, if we do, I know that I shared some information earlier about the MASC conference, but there was definitely a session there in particular that the MASC offers. In fact, it's our rep, Dorothy Presser, that offers it specifically on school committee goals, but also aligning those goals with superintendent goals. So I'm sure that could be available to us as a recording. I think they recorded several of the sessions and or as a PowerPoint if we want those ahead of time to prepare for the meeting. So I guess I'm putting out there for my colleagues, if we can consider a meeting, a committee of the whole to address our school committee goals here for next month.
Yep, we have a meeting on the 5th and the 19th. So, Madam Superintendent, if we could schedule a goals meeting before a regular committee meeting on one of those 2 days at 5 o'clock. That'd be great. Thank you. Member Hayes?
Thank you. Yeah, I also had something for the good of the order. I wanted to, as we've talked a lot about trying to get more student engagement and student involvement, I wanted to discuss the possibility, or at least bring up the possibility of having an agenda item that's actually dedicated to the student representatives, so that if they had something they wanted to talk about, if there was an issue, a question, a concern, or if they wanted to highlight a student achievement, anything, just to put it on the agenda, so it's not as if they have to approach us to ask if they can talk. Just a thought, just a way to try to give them more space and support their voice in our meetings.
I think that's a great idea. I was also wondering, and thank you for bringing that up through the chair, Member Hayes, because I was wondering if there's an opportunity for them to have a microphone as well, so that they don't have to come and sit with us, sort of to be able to speak. So if we can get, even if, I mean, there's so many opportunities for wireless mics, whatever here, we don't have to have them wired in. I'm sure between our media center and John McLaughlin, we can get something set up so that there's a microphone where they are able to stay in their seat and speak like the rest of us. I think that would be helpful.
Rousseau?
Thank you. That's an excellent, I really like that idea. I was in communication with the station manager. Today's Tuesday, Monday, this weekend. And he said that the mayor had approved spending to do some work to redo all of this stuff, the technology part of the chambers. So I think that's an excellent idea. And if that's going to be happening, then why not just, include that spot as being fully wired in? Why not? Thank you.
Yes, there is some upgrades, big part of ARPA, water sewer infrastructure, as well as IT broadband. So we have some capacity there.
All right. Is there any kind of a timeline on when that might happen? I know sometimes it can take a while for the technology piece. So maybe in the interim, we could start with a wireless option or something.
We have a wireless mic in the TV room, so we can make sure it's placed on
Thank
the
you.
desk. Yeah, I
Thank you.
think that's an easy solution.
Yeah, for now. Thank you.
And I signed for that IT paper, I believe, last week. So yes, things take
I like those.
yes, there we go.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
John.
McLaughlin. And then lastly, is there an opportunity that we can get them just a student rep nameplate?
I think Clerk Hurtubise orders those. Or do you order these ones, the school side?
I'm not sure who ordered it. It could be school side.
Probably the school side.
4 student
reps that are supposed to rotate.
So I would just suggest we put student rep.
Just one that says student rep. Yeah, that's a great idea.
That would be great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. No other comment for good of the order. We'll go on to number 6, report of subcommittees. We have rules policy subcommittee minutes, November 16th, 2022. Member Rousseau?
Thank you. Yes, the Rules Policy Subcommittee met on November 16th, and we began work on the wellness policy update that we had approved in 2019, just before the pandemic, and took up again in May of this year to have our wellness policy updated, the entire policy updated. We have some updates that need to happen from changing regulations, and then also to include include recess in the policy, which is presently not in the policy at all. The meeting was about an hour and 15 minutes long and was, I thought, an excellent conversation. We had all of the administrators, all of the principals on the meeting, and the feedback, the conversation was deep and broad. And we had members of the community that came and also spoke with a lot of expertise. And I was beyond thrilled with the conversation that happened. We had very good, we came up with 4 different things to discuss at the next meeting. So we're going to have another meeting in January where we will be looking specifically at policy language. We really just spent this last meeting just hearing from the public and hearing from the administration and the staff about recess. So at the next meeting we will have in January, the date is not yet set. We will be looking at policy language, and thankfully there are almost every district around us has policy language on recess, and it's unusually brief, which is nice. So we will move forward with that at the next rules meeting in January. There will be another rules meeting before that on a different topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Rousseau. Motion to accept the minutes.
Yeah,
by
motion.
Member McLaughlin. Seconded by.
Second.
Member Hayes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Minutes pass. We have number 7, report of the superintendent's updates and comments. Dr. Maurice Edward Vincent.
Good evening. Yes. It is unfortunate that this evening I have to share that there was another mass shooting, a hate crime. And I would like to ask us to take a moment of silence for all the individuals who died in Colorado at Club Q from an LGBTQ attack. Please know that MPS, Medford Public Schools, denounces hateful acts of violence that result in senseless killings of so many people. 5 people died as a result of yesterday's hate crime, 17 wounded. Medford Public Schools is committed to being an inclusive community for all. And I just ask that we take a moment of silence for all of those that passed away. Thank you. Tomorrow marks a very, very, very special day for Medford Public Schools community. Here I'm just showing on display the official sweatshirt that shows that this is the 135th matchup of Malden and Medford. And for 135 years of the rivalry that exists, tomorrow the game takes place at Fenway Park. But in preparation for that, there are a lot of wonderful traditions that exist. First, I want to thank the Rotary Club. Last Wednesday, the festivities began, and they've been ongoing. But last Wednesday, I want to thank the Medford and Malden Rotary Clubs for hosting our seniors at a luncheon last week at the Pearl Street Station in Malden. And due to the pandemic, some traditions had to be halted, but they hosted our seniors, both our football players and our cheerleaders from both sides were recognized. And they had wonderful speakers, and it was just a wonderful time to be together and realize that this tradition is one of the oldest in the entire nation. Following last Wednesday's celebrating, it continued yesterday on the weekend. So yesterday, I can definitely say at our bistro at the high school, Mr. Chris Murphy was the MC, Master of Ceremonies. During yesterday's event, the Kiwanis donated $500 to our football team. Again, it was a great night of bonding for our football team and for our cheerleaders to celebrate them, to recognize them. All the coaches were there. It was a great time to be had. Mayor Longo-Kern was able to attend. Member Kretz was able to attend last evening as well, representing the committee. State Rep Donato attended, and City Councilor Rick Caviello also attended as Kiwanians as well to congratulate and support our seniors. So that was a wonderful time where they just got to be together and get ready for tomorrow's game. I want to say a special thank you to the Dream Team. We had 5 power moms who have been supporting the football team throughout the entire season. And I want to just thank our moms, Gloria, Diana with 2 N's, Mom Courtney, Mom Nicole, and Mom Elaine for serving the food, just being there for the students and really making it truly a family event. So I want to thank them just for their service and dedication to our students. After yesterday evening's celebration, which started at 6 o'clock, the celebrating continued today. So today, our seniors of both Malden and Medford football teams and our cheerleaders from both teams met and had lunch at John Brewer's. And we sent a special thank you to the Honeycutt family because of their continued annual support. And at that establishment, John Brewer's, there was a room in the back, which is called the Rivalry Room. And they have both the Medford Mustangs football shirt displayed and the Malden Tornadoes football shirt displayed. And we thank them for their continued commitment. And it was wonderful, again, to be with both teams. Mayor Longo-Kern was there. The mayor of Malden, Mayor Christensen was, Gary Christensen was there, coaches, and it was just a wonderful time. Superintendent Lehia Noriega Murphy was there as well. The principal DeLover, the principal of Malden High, athletic coaches and directors were there. So it was a wonderful time. The kids were happy. And once again, you know, we encourage them to go out there tomorrow and leave everything on the field, and may the best player win when it's all said and done, the best team. So again, tomorrow is the big football game at Fenway Park, 7:30 p.m. tomorrow. We hope that everyone did go and get Mustang gear if you're able to. They'll still have some things available for sale tomorrow in the athletic office. So please go and get some warm gear and support our Mustangs. Also, because we're having the game on a Tuesday, you know, we had to switch some of our normal traditions. So the pep rally, believe it or not, will be taking place tomorrow at the high school in the gym. And we're really excited to really send them off and get ready to see them on the field. So again, this Thanksgiving time, it's a time for us just to be grateful for all of our wonderful athletes, both our football players and our cheerleading athletes. I also wanted to recognize that our cheerleaders competed this weekend in the state finals, and we came out in ninth place in the entire state of Massachusetts, which is absolutely fabulous. And so I want to congratulate all of our cheerleaders. They also had placed 7th in the regionals, but 9th in the entire state. So that's fabulous. And I want to just recognize their coaches as well. Their head coach is head coach Megan, and their assistant coaches are Sylvia, Vanessa, and Tracy. So thank you for all of your work supporting our sports and doing a fabulous job with cheerleading. So thank you to them all. Also, in the spirit of what's been happening with our athletics, we want to recognize the Mustang girls middle school softball and our co-ed cross-country teams for undefeated seasons, and they both won the GBL championships. I also want to recognize another senior, Anna Casey. She had the wonderful honor to sign to run Division I track next year at Stonehill College. So special congratulations to Anna Casey. She is not only a great athlete, but also a wonderful student, and the Skyhawks are lucky to have her. I know she'll continue to reach for the stars. Congratulations, Anna. And last but not certainly least, I want to congratulate our first ever unified flag football team that played Malden last week at Malden's McDonald Stadium on Wednesday. It was a wonderful show of sportsmanship. The Mustangs and the Tornadoes, they played to a tie of 7-7. This is just another way in which the Medford Public Schools continues to embrace inclusivity. So it was truly a wonderful event, and I look forward to maintaining that wonderful tradition. So in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I want to share that earlier today at McGlynn Elementary School, I had the opportunity to stop by their Thanksgiving food drive. And I want you to know that the partners that were participating in that were our own Medford Family Network. Marie Cassidy was there, and she said, this is lucky 13. So for 13 years, this tradition has been going on. So Marie Cassidy from the MFN, our family network, Pastor Pierre was also there. They were able to pick up 42 bags. In addition to that, the McGlynn Elementary School provided 15 family bags, as well as they were able to collect enough food to fill all of the mini food pantries across the district. So we want to say special thank you to our partners. Freddie Live Fitness donated gift cards. Stop and Shop donated gift cards. Wegmans donated gift cards. The PTG, the McGlynn Elementary School, donated gift cards. Students brought in 1,403 items. Parents donated cash as well. McGlynn Elementary staff donated $1,150. So all of the money that was raised and donated was converted into gift cards. And so every single Thanksgiving bag, every family will be receiving a gift card to go and purchase additional items that they want from the supermarket. So I want to just thank Ms. Doherty was there today, and Ms. Fiorentino, all the staff and families at the McGlynn Elementary School, Principal O'Brien, for making this Thanksgiving food drive a tremendous success. And according to Ms. Doherty, she said that was the largest amount of bags that they were. So it's continuing to get bigger and bigger in terms of what it is that they're able to do for the community. So I just wanted to say a special thank you to them, and happy Thanksgiving to all of the families that will be receiving those special gift bags. This past weekend also, some of you, I know, remember Rousseau, and maybe many others of you had the opportunity to support our drama club presentation. They performed a play by Oscar Wilde, The Importance of Being Earnest. Our students did a fabulous job. And I can say it's wonderful to be in the theater, live theater, seeing a performance, seeing our students perform. It just really does raise everyone's spirits. And I want to also say a special thank you to Miss Riley Jones, who helped to bring everything alive on the stage. And I was truly impressed that our students were able to maintain British accents. So I had the opportunity to say, like, how long did it take you? And one of the students said, oh, my dad's from the UK. You got to practice at home with dad. But the other students, you know, they really did a great job staying in character. And it was really wonderful to see them. I also want to take a quick moment to thank State Rep Sean Garbely and our entire delegation for their work on a bill that will allow students with intellectual disabilities or autism the opportunity to attend Massachusetts public colleges and universities. The Commonwealth is the first state in the nation to do so. Per the signed bill by Governor Baker, an individual shall not be denied an opportunity to participate in higher education solely due to the individual's disability status. This is truly wonderful news, and you will hear more about it later today in a resolution on our agenda from Member McLaughlin. There are a few upcoming events that I want to say as I bring my announcements to a close. This coming week, on Wednesday, we are having early dismissal, 11:30 for our middle schools and noon for the remaining schools. There is no school on Thursday and Friday. Again, no school this Thursday and Friday. So beginning on Sunday, November 27th, our Medford High School Band Association parents, they're going to be hosting their Christmas tree and wreath sale at Medford High School parking lot from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So please save those dates. They'll also be out on December 3rd, 4th, 10th, and 11th. So this is a great, great fundraiser for our band. Please go out and support our band to pick up your Christmas tree or wreaths for decorating your homes. Also, Tuesday, the 29th, will be the first parent-teacher conference night at Medford High School. On Tuesday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. in the gym, it will be English learners, science, math, PE, and health. On Wednesday, November 30th, the mayor welcomes all of you to the city's holiday extravaganza and the return of the Jingle Bell Festival at Medford City Hall. I wasn't sure of the time for 5 to 7 p.m. on Wednesday, November 30th. On Thursday, November 1st, it's our second parent-teacher conference night for the high school. Again, it will take place in the gymnasium from 6 to 8 p.m. and it will be for English, social studies, fine arts, and world languages. December 1st is also World AIDS Day. This year, the theme is putting ourselves to the test, achieving equity to end HIV. We stand together to encourage progress in HIV/AIDS prevention, treatment, and care around the world. Our next school committee meeting will be held on Monday, December 5th at 6 p.m. So in closing, I want to share a poem with you from Medford's own Lydia Maria Child, who is not only a famous writer, but also an abolitionist, as well as a woman and Native American rights activist. Over the river and through the wood, trot fast by dapple gray. Spring over the ground like a hunting hound, for this is Thanksgiving Day. Over the river and through the wood, and straight through the barnyard gate, we seem to go extremely slow. It is so hard to wait. Over the river and through the wood, Now grandma's cap I spy. Hurrah for the fun, is the pudding done? Hurrah for the pumpkin pie. I wish everyone a wonderful Thanksgiving, surrounded by your family, friends, and neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Edward Vincent. We have report number 2 on Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 37H and 37H and a half, 37H and 3/4, school discipline and student privacy. If you want to announce the names, that'd be great.
I would like to invite Attorney Felicia Vasudevan from Murphy, Hess, Toomey, and Lehane. Thank you.
Welcome, Felicia.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm going to be sharing my screen. And so I'm here to just give an overview on different discipline laws as well as local policy, the school committee policy on discipline that was adopted. So first is an overview. Local policy, the Medford School Committee adopted a policy requiring, before thinking about suspensions, that there's a certain degree of restorative practices. The policy allows school administration to engage in suspensions, but says that restorative practices should be used when possible. There's no sort of outright prohibition on suspensions, but does say that generally suspensions should be for 5 grounds. So one is possession of a weapon or exhibiting violent behavior. Ground 2 is, language or actions that are based in racism or discrimination. Ground 3 is sort of bullying or retaliation, or words or acts that have an intimidating impact on other students. The 4th category is possession of drugs with the potential to distribute. And final is academic integrity, when there's a repeated propensity to engage in behavior that doesn't show academic integrity. So that's the local policy, and that's overlaid with state policy about suspensions. And state policy about suspensions doesn't dictate sort of when an administrator suspends. It's more about how administration, if they decide to suspend, what process they have to provide. So generally there are 3 categories of process offered depending on the type of offense. The first is 37H, which is weapons, drugs, and assault on staff. The second category is 37H and a half, which is felonies. And then there's the 37H and 3/4 category, that's the everything else category. And so that could be vaping, that could be bullying, that could be harassment and discrimination, that could be student on student fights. All of that fits in the 37H and 3/4 category. So for the first category, 37H, that allows the principal to expel or suspend a student. All that's required is notice of an opportunity for a hearing before the principal and a hearing before the principal. If the student's expelled, there's a right to appeal to the superintendent, but if it's just a suspension, there's no right to appeal to the superintendent. And again, that's only for possession of controlled substance, dangerous weapons, or assault on school staff. 37H and a half is felony charges. And again, this allows us to suspend a student if they have a felony charge and their continued presence would have a substantial detrimental effect on the general welfare of the school, and allows a principal to expel a student who's been convicted of a felony and their continued presence would have a substantial detrimental effect on the general welfare of the school. And so, generally, what's required is just notice to the student and the parent that there's going to be a suspension, and then there is the right to appeal to the superintendent in writing if someone wanted to dispute that suspension or expulsion. And so then we get into the 37H and 3/4 bucket. In this bucket, you cannot expel a student. You can only suspend a student for at most 90 school days in a school year. And again, this is the everything else bucket. And so generally, except for emergency removals or in-school suspensions that have sort of their own set procedures, the general requirement for a suspension under 37H and 3/4 is that families have to get notice of a hearing. They have a hearing, and then they get the notice of outcome. And that's the general framework. The amount of procedure that's offered sort of depends on the length of the suspension, with long-term suspensions requiring more rights and more procedure than a short-term suspension, so a suspension of less than 10 days. But that's no matter whether you're talking about a short-term suspension or a long-term suspension, that's the general framework for suspensions under 37H and 3/4, notice, hearing, and then notice of outcome. There is an exception for emergency removals. Oh, I'm sorry. If the student's continued presence poses a danger to persons or property or materially and substantially disrupts the order of the school, then a principal or an assistant principal can remove the student without that sort of pattern of notice, hearing, opportunity, and outcome decision, and can remove them prior to the hearing, but the suspension hearing has to be held within 2 days following the emergency removal. And again, to emergency remove a student, it has to meet that standard. The student's continued presence has to pose a danger to persons or property or materially and substantially disrupt the order of the school. And whenever a school district engages in discipline, that's confidential student record information. No third party, so members of the community, even teachers who don't need to know that for their job, other school staff that don't need to know it for their job, don't have access to that information without specific informed written consent of the eligible student or the parent. And so all that information has to be kept confidential under our student records regulations, because discipline is sort of one of your quintessential student record information. So that's it for my presentation. I appreciate everyone having me here.
McLaughlin?
Thank you. Thank you for the information. There's helpful information here. And I wanted to ask to clarify if the 37H1/2 and 37H and 3/4 are specific to students with disability, or are there other items on here that are specific to students with disability?
There's nothing here that's specific to students with disabilities. These procedures sort of don't change in terms of how we go about deciding whether to suspend a student if a student's with disability. The difference for students with disability is in sort of the procedure. There's an additional layer of procedure for students with disabilities that if we're talking about an exclusion of a student for over 10 school days, then we have to start having manifestation determinations, which means that there's a meeting where people discuss whether the behavior is a manifestation of the disability. And if it is, then you can't suspend the student.
Thank you. So that manifestation hearing happens if there's a 10-day suspension, is that right?
It's if you get more than 10 days cumulatively.
Cumulatively over the year. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be consecutively, right?
Correct, yes.
Thank you. And then the manifestation hearing is a manifestation of whether their disability influenced the discipline.
Yeah, the question is, was their conduct substantially related to their disability, or was it due to our failure to implement either the IEP or the 504 plan? If the answer is yes to either question, then the student has a right to return, and we consider doing an FBA, a functional behavior assessment, or updating the behavior intervention plan.
Thank you. That's super helpful. I just want people to understand the nuances of the law, which obviously all law has nuance, but I really appreciate you mentioning that. Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Felicia, if I may, from the chair, with regards to the amount of days for suspensions, is there standards out there? I don't know if they're written in the law, or is that fully the discretion of the principal and then appeal rights to the superintendent?
It is. There's nothing in the law about how many days an administrator can suspend. That's within the discretion of the administrator. And the right to appeal to the superintendent is for any long-term suspension. So any suspension over 10 days cumulatively or consecutively, there's a right to appeal to the superintendent. For a short-term suspension, there's no right to appeal.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We have a report on 2023 special education determination under Part B of the Individuals with Disabilities Education, IDEA, Ms. Joan Bowen, Director of Student Services.
Good evening. Tonight I will be reporting on the 2022-2023 determinations of need for special education technical assistance or intervention from Medford Public Schools. Just to give you a little background is under the Federal Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education must make annual determinations regarding local education agencies' specific needs for technical assistance or intervention in special education. And Massachusetts does so based on 4 categories. Next slide. The 4 categories would be meets requirements, needs assistance, needs intervention, or needs substantial intervention. Next slide. So in making the 2022-23 LEA determination, the department assessed Medford Public Schools' performance and compliance data, including data from the General Accountability and Assistance System, tiered focus monitoring process, state complaints, and state performance plan, and our annual performance reports. The rubric specifically considers the following: 5-year cohort graduation rates for students with disabilities, an annual dropout rate for students with disabilities, our public school monitoring special education compliance data, problem resolution system special education complaint data, performance on our special education state performance plan and our annual performance report based on indicators that we are identified in a cohort and we need to report on a yearly basis, as well as data and findings of significant disproportionality. Next slide, please. So each agency is evaluated using the rubric and based on the overall score placed into one of the LEA determination categories. As described in the determination rubric, final LEA determinations reflect both performance and compliance in special education. This year, the 5-year cohort graduation rate and least restrictive environments, which are indicators 5 and 6, and I'll explain a little bit more at the end when I show you the graph of Medford's specific results this year. So they continue to be prioritized by the department and are weighted times 1.5 and times 2.0 respectively. Additionally, points for problem resolution system complaints are calculated per 1,000 students with disabilities. Next slide, please. So Medford results. So as a result of the 2022-2023 school year, Medford Public Schools earned 23.5 out of 30 possible points on the rubric, or 78.3%. Last year, Medford Public School District earned 29 out of 36 possible points on the rubric, or 80.6%. Medford received an overall rating of meeting requirements, which is consistent to last year's rating. Therefore, the department will not be providing targeted technical assistance or intervention in these LEAs based on the LEA determination. So the last slide is the specific indicators or information that the department looked at in regards to Medford. So the first one is our annual dropout rate, and Medford got a 3.4%, 2 out of 4 points. This was a little bit different than last year. We received 2% last year. But if you look at when the annual dropout rate was, the information that they took, it was during the 2021 school year. So that we had just returned from COVID. It was the first school year back in session. There were different cohorts coming in at time, and it was difficulty getting students engaged in learning and back in school. So I just want people to take that under consideration when we're looking at the annual dropout rate. The 5-year cohort graduation rate is indicator 1. And this score indicates that Medford is at or above the state's rate of 91% for the 5-year cohort graduation rate for students with disabilities compared to last year's rate, which was 83.9%. So this year, we're at 87%. So we have an increase in the students and our 5-year cohort graduation rate, which is an improvement from the previous year. The next is the public school monitoring compliance. So this is through the problem resolution system, and this is through Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And what happens is parents, caregivers, they can file a complaint with PRS, and what PRS looks at is if the local agency has violated education law, regulations, or compliance. They take a look at the complaint, and then they will provide the district with a letter of finding that we need to do an internal investigation. We may need to provide documentation on what we did to prove that we were in compliance. We provide that all to DESE, and then they make a final determination. So last year, Medford Public Schools did have 12 PRS complaints, and it was a wide range. It could have been from parents feeling that their students weren't receiving the appropriate level of services, or there was a bullying report, things like that. So it is a wide range. So based on those 12 PRS complaints, there were 2 that no formal action was taken. 2, that there was a letter of withdrawal, that the teams were able to meet and have a team meeting and resolve the issue before it had to go any further. There were 5 no findings of non-compliance. So each of those let Medford know that we met we were following regulations and compliance and the law in regards to those complaints. There was 1 finding of non-compliance, and that resulted in the district doing a corrective action plan. And what happens is you look at what the complaint is, where we were found to not be in compliance, and offer some professional development to staff to review that law, regulation, and then to do some in-district monitoring to make sure that we don't do that again in the future. And they will look for that documentation over the course of the year to make sure that we're following through on what that issue may have been that we were found in non-compliance. And 2, we are still waiting to hear decisions from PRS. They are over, they have probably 98 complaints that they're working on, and typically they may have like 68, but every day they're getting more and more. So the process is taking a little longer to get the results of those 2. So the score of 3 indicates that there were 1 to 2.9 letters of finding issued per 1,000 students with disabilities. This year's score was a 2.4 compared to last year's score of 3. The next 3 indicators are indicators 4B, 9, and 10. 4B is regarding suspensions and expulsions, and it's the percentage of Medford's students with, if there's a significant discrepancy by race and ethnicity. The next one is indicator 9, which is disproportionate representation. So they look at the percentage of districts with disproportionate representation of racial ethnic groups due to inappropriate identification. And then indicator 10 is also a disproportionate representation in specific disability categories. So the percentage of districts with disproportionate representation of racial ethnic groups in a specific disability category due to inappropriate identification. These 3 indicators received a score of 4, which indicates that there are no compliance findings, which is also consistent with last year's performance. Indicator 5, this is our percentage of students with IEPs, ages 5 and enrolled in a kindergarten, ages 6 to 21 who are served either inside regular class 80% or more of the day, either inside regular class less than 40% of the day, or C, in separate schools, residential facilities, or homebound hospital placements. And indicator 6 is the percentage of children with IEPs ages 3, 4, and 5 who are enrolled in a preschool program. And this is A, they receive majority of special education and related services in regular early childhood programs, which is similar to our MEEP program. B, they attend separate special education class, separate school or a residential facility. And C, that they receive special education and related services in the home. The percentage of students falling in these categories was 68.5% compared to last year when it was 66.2%, indicating that more students were found eligible in the course of this year. And that information was also taken from the 2021-22 school year. And lastly is the significant disproportionality data. Both from the school year 21-22 and 22-23 indicates that there is no status in either one of those. So we are found to be 4 out of 4 points who are compliant in that matter in that area as well. In your packets, I've also included the chart of indicators that the school district may be asked to provide DESE with information throughout the school year. And there's also a frequently asked question, as well as the letter that Medford did receive from DESE regarding these findings. I do want to let you know that the graph was cut off, and that's why I put it at the end of the PowerPoint. You couldn't see the last column regarding significant disproportionality data. So that's the report. I don't know if anyone has any specific questions in regards to that.
I do.
Member McLaughlin?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bowen. I know this is a lot of work to put together, and this is not obviously the coordinated program review. This is the annual LEA.
Correct.
Right.
So it's tiered focus monitoring now. So there's no longer the correct.
Coordinated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's,
yeah.
yeah.
It's, yeah.
Yeah.
focused
So
on
we
it.
had done that.
They
We
love
were-
to change the name.
They do.
Just
So
wanna get
it's
used to what they are.
TFM, and that was last year where we.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that's the every 3-year one. And so
Yes.
this is the annual to differentiate.
Correct.
And then the indicators, those are the SPP APR indicators? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Yep.
Would it be possible, and if not, I can go online and get it if you're not, or if your staff's not able, but would it be possible to get a list of the indicators, just indicators 1 through 9?
I did. I included that in the packet.
Where is that?
So it's a single sheet. I'll just get it for you.
Do you have it?
So it
Oh,
looks
there it
like
is.
this.
Yeah,
It says
there it
IBC. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. So thank you, that's super helpful. And so those are all, yeah, looking at, those are all the indicators that the state looks at in terms of the special education.
Correct, but we're not responsible for all of them every single year. We're put in a cohort, and there are specific indicators that we have to report on at the beginning of the school year and at the end of the school year. So indicator 7 is one of those,
Right,
indicator 14, but we have to input this information, and that's what DESE looks at.
so do they randomize what indicators that we
Yep.
report on?
Yes.
At the beginning and the end, are they different, or they?
So, no, it's at the start of the school year, we may look at preschool enrollment.
Yeah,
And then we look at the end of the school year, how many students were found eligible, ages 3, 4, and 5. And we
Right.
need to make sure that they were found eligible before their 3rd birthday and that they were receiving services. So they look at that. And then transition, it's post-secondary outcomes.
Right.
So we have to follow up for 3 years with students who were on IEPs as to, when they graduated, what they're doing now, if
Mhm.
they're, if they started in college, are they continuing? And they look at that data as well.
okay. So if I understand you correctly, you're saying that it's a randomized indicator list that you get at the beginning of the year that tell you what indicators your cohort's going to be responsible for reporting on?
Correct. Yep.
Of the 17 indicators that
Yes.
there are?
Yep.
And so you get 2 annually that you report on?
No, currently we have 3 this year,
Okay,
but it varies every year. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
so that would be great if maybe at the beginning of the year, if we could know what the 3 are, if you wouldn't mind letting us know in the
Sure.
beginning of the year what the 3 are that
Yep.
are being reported on, so we can kind of keep an eye on,
Yep.
on those 2.
I can actually show you the schedule of what it looks
Yeah,
like
that'd be
and what the
great.
activities are that
Yeah.
we're responsible throughout the year.
Sure, that
Yep.
would be awesome. Thank you. And
Yep.
then, what was the other thing I was going to ask you? Oh, for the, and thank you for the breakdown on the public school monitoring compliance, in terms of the PRS complaints. That's super helpful. We've asked PRS for that data in the past, and it's been a little bit trickier to get, so it's nice to hear it from you.
Yep.
That much appreciated. And then, regarding 504 and OCR, were there any, so Office of Civil Rights complaint or the procedural safeguards for 504, but also students with IEPs? So I know there was the public school monitoring, was there any OCR complaints this
No,
year?
there were not.
Okay.
Nope.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then a 78.3%, and certainly while there's been lots of great things that have been happening, I don't know what the grade equivalent is, just not being a teacher and not having had a report card myself in a little while. What would a 78.3% be grade equivalent
I would say maybe I'm going to go with a B minus or a C plus.
Do minus or
There is
C.
room for improvement, and I would like to see that number higher.
Yeah,
But they did change some of the criteria and how they, like the times 2.0, that was different this year.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you could generalize it with a B minus or a C plus, if you were talking to your student or somebody, your child, and you were saying, okay, you did okay, but let's think about what the room for improvement is and what can we work on? What would you say those things would be?
I would want to know why, high school dropout rates have increased a little bit. Like, what is the root cause of that? And then what sort of strategy, what can we implement? We have engagement specialists. How do we, use them more is it school, like, what's the root cause of why students aren't finishing school? Is it attendance? Is it social emotional needs? I mean, I think there's a bigger picture that we need to look at, but that based on this information that I got last week, I'd like to do a deeper dive into
Something
that.
that we can drill down into. And then just thank you. And then just one last thing. What was the other one? That was the 68.5%. So 6 out of 8. So one was the 2 out of 4, which was the annual dropout rate. The other one was the 6 out of 8, which was the indicators 5 and 6, which here's my indicator cheat sheet. 5 and 6 are educational environments and preschool environment, right?
Correct.
So educational environment, a percentage of children with IEPs, 5 and 6 served inside regular class, 80% or more inside regular class, less than 40%. So it's the inclusion rate
Correct.
in general.
But it's also looking at students who are also in out of district programming. So there's 3 different.
Yeah, I see the criteria. Yeah. So is that saying that there's room for improvement on our
Yes.
inclusion
Yep.
data? Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you. Thanks, super helpful.
Member Rousseau?
Thank you. This is a lot to digest. So my first question is, well, we just heard that the things that are being measured change every year.
Mhm.
So my question around, is this data available online?
It is.
Okay,
It
good.
is. I can actually send you the link
That'd be
if you'd like to, and you can see the reports from previous years. And if you can, I have them. I get them in a letter, and I would be willing to share those with you so you can take a look at it.
Great, thank you. Because I mean, some of these things, 2 out of 4 sounds like a 50%, but if the average for the state is 1 out of 4, then 2 out of 4 looks good. If the average for the state is 3 out of 4, then,
Yeah, so this is all on DESI's website.
Okay,
they sent us the link. It might be in the letter that,
Okay,
but
I'll take a look.
I can get that for you for sure.
Thank you. The post-graduation or outcomes, we had talked about that, I don't know, a few years ago. Everything's before the pandemic, it seems, but about how hard it was. It was in response to a series, I don't know if it was some podcast series around how first generation kids, especially kids of color, okay, Siri thinks I want to talk to Siri, who would go to college, and then the dropout rate was through the roof as a freshman in college
Mhm.
because they were not prepared. They had no understanding of what college was like. And when we talked about that here about, how do we figure out are we doing what we need to do to make sure that when they leave and go to college, because we have a big sort of like almost a celebration every year about who's going where. But, celebrating a kid going off to Bentley and then, 3 months in, they quit, even though they were a straight A student at Medford High. There's a story there. And, how do we make sure we're preparing them? And I realized we can't be responsible for the kids for the rest of their lives. So there's limits,
Mhm.
but the ability to understand what happens to kids once they've left was something that was sort of not possible. What I'm seeing in this measurement is that you have to do that.
For students with disabilities. So that's,
Right,
yes,
but,
yes.
How do you are you literally harassing them with phone calls and letters?
Phone
and-
calls, emails, letters, yes. So we try to get 3 different types of communication from them, and then we check that when we call them every year to make sure it's still accurate. Sometimes they still have connections to the guidance counselors or someone at school, so we try to update it, and then we do send letters home as well. We've had a pretty good response.
Okay.
I know we try to put things specifically in place all year long up to right before they graduate. So we have this form for every student that's ready to go, and then we follow up with it the following year.
Okay.
Numbers change, things like that, but we haven't had a lot of mail return to us, and the students will reply, and there's like a survey that they can fill out. If they don't, sometimes they see Medford Public Schools and they won't answer their cell phone, but they will respond to a letter. So yeah, we try different means to make sure that we get that information.
And how heavy of a lift is that for your staff?
So I'm going to say we have 3 ETLs. We're lucky we have 3 evaluation team leaders at the high school level, and they work closely with the families, and that's part of their job.
Okay.
So they know it's a requirement. They work when they're at the high school level, that this is an activity that we need to do on a yearly basis. So
So that's sort of where I see as the gap, is that there's staff who, they're not teachers, they're not guidance counselors, like this is their job. So this is part of their job. And, you know, for instance, to find a way to have all the kids be getting these calls and letters, even if it was every year, every 5 years, just so we could get some sense. There's no staff to do it because there's nobody whose job it is. So, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
I just was trying to figure out, like, how do we make it work there, but we couldn't figure it out in the rest of the school. And
I mean,
sort of-
Desi also provided us with a lot of guidance on how to do it, forms,
Okay.
the standard forms, things like that.
Okay, thank you. And my last question is, you know, when I first came on the school committee in 2018, Desi had just done this whole thing, maybe it was the federal government, I forget who, around dropout rates was the biggest thing. It was Desi. And so then suddenly dropout rates was everything in our report card, and just like that, voila, dropout rates dropped to the floor across the state. And of course, it's questionable whether that's was accurate. Whenever I see dropouts, I have to ask the question, are there, for this one, not for necessarily for the rest of the student population, are there very strict protocols for determining whether a student is considered dropped out? And I ask that because, look, students, families move and they don't feel inspired to respond to MPS because now they live in Colorado, or they go back to another country or move to a country. There's just all these ways in which a student drops off our radar, and many times they're not dropping out, but we don't know which way it is for a lot of students. And I'm just wondering, for this particular measurement, are there very strict things where we don't get to make a judgment call, or do we get to make a judgment call? Like, oh, I knew that kid, John, and I know that his family left and they didn't fill any forms out, but I know they moved to New Hampshire.
So we have a more formalized process with students with disabilities. So there is a process to send out after 10 days of absence. There's a letter that goes out to the families, but we also say that we want to have a team meeting at that time to discuss. So we bring the family in, sometimes with the student, to talk about, you know, what's going on, why are they not coming to school, and what are options for them. And then we officially unenroll them. And they, you know, so there is a process, but there are students that do fall through the cracks. But we do try to get in touch with them. We reach out to the families, but sometimes we don't always hear back from the families. So we don't know if they've moved to a different state, that sort of thing. But we do the meetings to talk about what are different options. And there are some students that just, you know, are 18 and they would like to do the high SED or something like that, which is the new GED. So it's a conversation that takes place during that time.
So, but I mean, I'm assuming somewhere in school brain, somebody has to code a student as being dropped out.
We do on our state reporting for students with disabilities. We have to indicate that on our EZIEP, and we have to put down that they had dropped out and the reasons why.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you don't have any reasons, John disappeared. I mean, if John literally disappears, you may call DCF or something. But,
Right, there's a different process.
You know,
yeah.
Students talking to their teachers, oh, we're moving to Colorado. And then they moved to Colorado.
But
they
then
didn't
the
involve
school
you.
district has to reach out to us for their records. So
Okay.
that's how we can,
When they land somewhere else, they
Yep.
reach out to
yeah, they do
us.
reach out, especially if it's a student with disability or
Right.
on a 504, they want to know, they want to have, you know, their previous evaluations, their IEP, that sort of thing.
Okay, so
Yeah.
do you feel pretty confident that our determination of a student dropping out is pretty robust?
Yes, I do.
Shouldn't- Not allowed to use that word as a politician, sorry, but, okay, good.
Yep.
That's good to hear. I just worry that, once we start measuring something, suddenly everybody, the measurement changes once you start looking at it. I forget that physics law, but, all right. Thank you. This is really great information and I look forward to, can't wait to look online and.
Yeah,
see it.
I'll send you the link tomorrow.
I just have
Member McLaughlin?
I just have one more question. Thank you. I just wanted to know about guidance, when we get guidance from OSAP or from DESI. I know that there was the disability guidance, the discipline guidance that we had over the summer from OSAP. There's just different letters that come out from the Office of Special Education Planning and Policy and from DESI as a whole in terms of disability-related issues across the country, but that are specific to our state as well. How does that information get distributed from your office?
So there's a monthly special ed directors meetings that I attend through DESI, so we get a lot of the updates then. And then I meet with my coordinators on a weekly basis. I call it my slate meeting, and that's when I update them on any new guidance that comes down and how it's going to impact the special education students in our district.
Thank you. And so does the general education population teachers get any of that guidance information, or does that come strictly to the ETLs and disseminate from them?
So it would depend on what the new guidance is and who are the people that really need to be informed. So if it's new discipline, we would want principals, assistant principals, curriculum, as many people involved in that. And that's what we did do. So I think it just depends on what the guidance is and who really is going to be impacted by the changes.
Thank you
Right, thank
very
you.
much, Ms. Bowen. We have our last report on labor update. Mr. David Murphy, Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. At the last committee meeting, I updated you, letting you know that the bargaining units who have reached resolution with respect to the successor agreements received their FY22 retroactive compensation. And I believe I mentioned that we were working on the FY23 compensation, and which would be retroactive from July 1st for the 5 agreements that we've reached. And I do anticipate that will take place this week during this current pay period. There really isn't any other substantive updates, so I'm happy to answer your questions. And I guess just one caveat I would put on my comments from a moment ago is that there's always troubleshooting with respect to these implementation of agreements that are affecting hundreds of people. So if you happen to be an individual who has an issue that we need to do some troubleshooting on, and you happen to be watching this evening, I'll let you know that we'll be working on it in coming days and weeks. Thank you.
We do not have any presentations of the public or continued business, so I'm going to go to new business number 10, offered by Member Rousseau, 2022-52, policy harassment, ACAB. We'll have the text Columbus Elementary School change to Missatech Elementary School in the Medford Public Schools Policy Manual. Date requested November 21st, 2022. Date submitted the 12th.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Mayor,
Member Rousseau.
may I make a motion to suspend rule number 46 requiring a second reading of this?
Second.
So you want to take both readings tonight?
Yes, please.
Motion to amend by Member Rousseau, seconded by Member McLaughlin, and motion to take both readings tonight. If their approval by,
Did I make a motion to approve? Yeah.
Yes.
motion for approval by Member McLaughlin, seconded by Member Hayes. Did you want to roll call?
Oh, no, we don't need a roll.
Okay,
No.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Paper passes. I saw you with the
Sorry.
no cards, so you confused me. No, that's fine. Next, new business 2022-53, offered by Member McLaughlin, whereas students with disabilities who are unable to pass the 10th grade MCAS exam requirement for graduation do not receive a high school diploma. Whereas our state legislator, Representative Sean Garbely, worked for years to ensure access to higher education for students with disabilities who have not received a high school diploma. And whereas a new bill called MAI CEI has been enacted in Massachusetts so that students with disabilities are provided access to post-secondary education and a college life. Be it resolved, this body recognizes our Mass State Representative, Sean Garvely, for his commitment to persons with disabilities and to his passion to eradicate ableism through a formal letter from this body recognizing Rep. Garvely's work. And be it further resolved that the MAI CEI initiative is recognized in our public school district as part of our high school transition program offered by member McLaughlin on the 17th, which is today, was requested to be on the agenda. Member McLaughlin.
Thank you. No, this wasn't offered on this. Thank you. That was great. Yeah, there's a typo. I just wanted to make note of. It is college life. I see that you recognize that, so thank you. That could be reflected and fixed in the minutes. That would be great. And as the superintendent was saying earlier, this is a landmark legislation that Representative Garbely was a key driver in the Macy legislation. So Macy is Mass Inclusive Concurrent Enrollment Program. And Sean has just really, Representative Garbely has just really been pushing this uphill for several years. And as stated, for our students that don't achieve MCAS passing on the 10th grade MCAS, which is a requirement for a high school diploma, this allows them to go to post-secondary education and for their not to be impeded by their disability to do that. So these students can attend college life and be part of a college campus and all those things that are afforded to students without disabilities. It's a big deal for families and students with disabilities. And I just want to publicly recognize Representative Garbely for the work through a formal letter that can come from the superintendent's office. I'm happy to help you compose the letter if you feel that there's a need for that. But something that's just formally recognizing is really important. Then also the resolution that the Macy Initiative is recognized in our public school district as part of our high school transition program, which I know that that's been the case as it was being formed and before it was actually law, when it was just the Inclusive Concurrent Enrollment Program. It was called ICE at the time. But now that it's state law, I'm sure that it will be part of the transition program. I just want to make sure that it's recognized as such by this body. So if I could have a motion to approve, I would appreciate it.
Motion to approve? Motion
Second.
to approve by member Graham, seconded by member Rousseau. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for
Thank you.
putting that on, member McLaughlin. We have reports requested. Number 11, reading instruction curriculum requested by member Rousseau, member Hayes, member Graham. One or more questions the report is attempting to answer. One, does the Medford Public Schools have curricula from Fontes and Pinnell in use by our teachers? 2, does the Medford Public Schools have curricula from Lucy Calkins? 3, are we purchasing any reading curriculum that uses the 3 queuing system? 4, how many minutes per day are our K-3 elementary teachers spending on phonics with the entire classroom? What percentage of our K-3 teachers are receiving training in phonics instruction? 6, have our teachers been taught that using alternatives such as 3 queuing is harmful to students? And 7, what is the plan for ensuring every single elementary school teacher, current and newly hired, is aware of the science of reading and that use of the 3 queuing system is harmful and should not be used with our students? Member Rousseau.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the report request is self-explanatory. This is in response to multiple podcasts from American Public Media that has really gone deep into the state of reading in American public schools and the lack of science that drives the majority of the reading curricula that is used in virtually all schools. Even though the, I think it's MRIs that were able to show back in the late 60s that in fact students do not learn to read the way that they're being taught, and that the way they're being taught to read is in fact detrimental and harmful to the average and the weaker of the readers. So I just want to get an understanding and lay of the land and what is going on in Medford in these specific areas. And then obviously based on the results, we would probably have to have more conversations. But I felt like this is a good starting point since I can't just walk around in schools and sit through teachers' classes. Thank you.
Motion to approve? Motion for approval by member Graham, seconded by member Hayes. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. We have another reports requested. Suspension and discipline report requested by member McLaughlin. One or more questions the report is attempting to answer. How many suspensions are there at each grade level? Does the DESI profile student discipline data indicate improvement? Is there any disproportionality in suspension and discipline for our more vulnerable subgroups? Has staff been trained on OSEP federal 2022 disciplinary guidance? How are incident reports collected and how are families notified of disciplinary actions? Member McLaughlin. I'm sorry, I didn't, background, that's the same one. Data elements you are expecting, information from DESI, profile data on student discipline, information on training for proportionality and discipline, information on training with respect to social, emotional, and behavioral needs for students with disabilities, for administrators and principals, information on training for culturally competent responsive programs. What is family engagement on these matters? Member McLaughlin, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So yes, I'm just looking for information on all of these data points. There are some of this on our DESI student profiles, which I'd like to be reviewed when we do go over the report, which is indicated here in terms of the data elements. And I would encourage colleagues, if there's anything else that they wanted to add here, to please do so. But I think that this is important information that we can all benefit from. So hoping that we can get this.
Mayor? I would like to offer an amendment to add a number 6 to this. We received a discipline report earlier this year from Dr. Cushing, I believe. And what I'd like is to receive that report again with an explanation as to whether or not that report reflects actuals. What I mean by that is if 50 kids get a detention and 30 show up, is the discipline report showing us the 30 that showed up or the 50 that should have been there? I'm assuming that every kid who gets a detention, for instance, doesn't show, especially on Saturdays. And so I would just like to, the report we received in January was challenging to comprehend. There was a lot of duplicative stuff going on, but I'd like to include that report as number 6 and an explanation of what it even means, if that's acceptable.
Sure, that would be in comparison to the data that's here as well, because I think the question number 5 should answer some of that around the incident reports collected and how we're notified in terms of the data for the discipline that you're talking about. But I'd be willing to accept that amendment and make a motion to approve.
Mayor, before you do that,
Member Graham.
I also wanted to offer a friendly amendment to number 1 to read how many in-school suspensions, out-of-school suspensions, detentions, social probations, and other forms of discipline are there at each grade level? And to Member Rousseau's point, issued and served. So I was hoping to get a little bit more information about some of these bigger categories of student discipline, so that we can understand for ourselves when we are suspending in school versus out of school, when we are putting kids on social probation, when we are issuing detentions, and then, that sort of nuance of, are we issuing and they're being served, or are we issuing and they're not being served? Probably more in the case of like a detention, but wanted to see that same breakout for all of those categories.
Mayor?
Member McLaughlin.
So I heard you on the first 3, but I'm not sure what you mean about by other, because that can be really vast for the administration to try to address. I'm not sure what you mean by that.
I don't know what the other categories are either. So I think I'm looking for the administration to identify if there's something missing from
Yeah.
that list.
Yeah.
That is commonly executed in our
Yeah.
schools, and I want to know about that too.
Yeah. So I guess I would just clarify that to say, and if there are other, what those categories are.
Yes.
If we can. So if you got that? Yeah.
Good, because I didn't write it down.
Sorry, that was a mouthful.
It was a mouthful. So I would accept that and make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion for approval as amended by member Rousseau and member Graham, seconded by member Graham. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
We have condolences. The Medford School Committee expresses its sincere condolences to the family of William Matarazzo, father of former cosmetology teacher Janice DePace. And the Medford School Committee expresses its sincere condolences to the family of Albert Panarisi, a former science teacher at the Roberts Junior High School. If we all may rise for a moment of silence. Thank you. Next meeting is Monday, December 5th, regular school committee meeting here in the chambers as well as on Zoom. Good luck to the Medford Mustangs tomorrow night and happy Thanksgiving.
Motion to
everybody.
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by member McLaughlin, seconded by member Graham. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, meeting is adjourned.